Welcome to another Pirkei Avot shir. We are now, we're still on chapter 6, Mishna 6. Because this is a very lengthy Mishna, we're going to do today part 3 of 4. And we dedicate this episode in memory of Levy, Moshe, Esther, and Levy, and also in memory of Binyamin ben Moshe Esther. I'm going to hand you over to Michael.
Thank you, Rabbi Mashiach. So in this episode 3 of 4, the sixth Mishnah, the sixth Perek, we are talking about the 48 attributes or necessity character traits that one needs in order to be a completed master of Torah or Talmud Chacham. And they are in ascending order. The first 9 dealt with a beginner on his journey. The last 13 that we did last episode dealt with the intermediate level of his mastery, and the next 12 deal with a fully ordained or graduate student who is about to really come into his own. But let's look back just as a recap from the last ones from last episode. Let's go through them. So the 10th was attending scholars, attending the actual, observing their scholars and helping with their daily rituals and things. Number 11 was diktuk chaverim, which is precision with fellow students. Number 12 was by pilpul, or the sharp discussions of pupils. Number 13 is by yishuv, sedateness, calmness when teaching and learning, and it could even allude to yeshiva, which is by actually making a house of study a place that you go to, and to develop yourself as in the best possible conditions. Number 14 is by knowledge of the Torah and Mishna, combining the written and oral teachings in your studies. Number 15 to 18 are a group of 3 aspects of life that you should try to minimize in order to maximize the time you have for your Torah. These are by minimizing business, worldly matters, pleasure, and sleep. It's actually 4. 15 to 18 is actually 4 aspects. Number 19 is by minimizing unnecessary chatter. Number 20 is by minimizing unnecessary laughter. Although we know that laughter is quite important and it helps to ease, and certain great Rabbonim would use witty remarks in order to make people feel more relaxed in the beginning of their lessons, and also just to refresh people, wake people up by including a joke that would perhaps, through laughter, invigorate people. Number 21 is by long-suffering patience. This is not giving up we know that our debating backwards and forwards, our halls of study are places of confrontation, but friendly confrontation, and having to and fro with our chevusas. But this must be done with patience and with the calmness, and pace yourself. Number 22, a good heart, a lev tov. We know many references have been made to the qualities of a good heart, and they encompass a lot of attributes. So in the end, if you have a good heart, as we learned, I think it was in the second perek, we learned about the last of the 5 pupils, the favorite pupil Rabbi Akiva, but I wasn't sure. Elisha or Elazar, I'm not sure. Yes. He said that the best thing you should have, best attribute, is a good heart, and it was agreed that was the best attribute, as this encompasses everything in life. If you have a good heart, that was the very last attribute of the graduate, of the beginner. Now we're going to move on to episode 3, which is the fully ordained graduate student. So 23, you must have faith in scholars. So the very first teacher of the Torah was Moshe Rabbeinu. When he felt that this was too much of a burden to bear, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, gather for me 70 men of the elders of Israel, and I will draw from the Spirit which is upon you, and I will put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you. And then we read also, the Lord came down and he drew from the Spirit that was upon him and put it upon 70 elders. Now this is the Metzora that is indicated in the very first Mishna of Pirkei Avot, how he transmitted to Yeshua, and Yeshua transmitted it to the other 70 elders. And the Midrash adds, to what was Moshe like? To a burning light set in a menorah, from which many lights are kindled, yet its own light loses nothing. So was the wisdom of Moshe, which lost nothing then. This is from Midrash Sifrei on Numbers. That's number 20. A little bit more on that. When you study with a Talmud Chacham who has really mastered Torah, until you kind of get lit by his knowledge and you start to maintain a glow within yourself, this is what is suggested here. You have to also accept on faith that in an unbroken chain of tradition of being a carrier of the flame was very important. This is what Moshe exemplified, Yeshua and the 70 elders and all the Metzora since. This is what our religion is based upon, is this faithful transmission of our oral tradition. So how does the student with faith in scholars acquire this illumination from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He seeks to know not only facts, words and laws, but he moves to perceive and fathom the very thoughts that lie within the Torah. We learn in the concept of Chassidut, teaches if one would understand Abaya's words, he must link his spirit to the spirit of that sage. Then he will learn the true meaning that Abaya wishes to convey. So with every sage and scholar, he seeks to understand. In this vein, the Torah says, whenever an oral teaching is quoted, the Talmud says, whenever an oral teaching is quoted in the name of a sage, he who established it, his lips move in the grave. This is mentioned in Yevamot 97a. So in the union of spirit with spirit, the thought of the departed Chacham lives and speaks again through the student. I think the Lubavitcher Rebbe made mention of this when he, the first siyum of the completion of the first cycle of Mishna Torah, he gave a speech that I've seen on YouTube that mentions whenever a student learns Rambam, Rambam's lips move in his grave. Number 24, by accepting affliction. So this is a very kind of difficult thing to understand, but it's something that is important to talk about. You can gain from suffering. Pain can bring a person new levels of understanding in the Torah, especially, which he can't acquire in any other way. The fourth Mishnah in this Perek suggests this. It is also that there's a Talmudic dictum which I quote: 3 valuable gifts did HaKadosh Baruch Hu give the people of Israel, and all were bestowed only through suffering: the Torah, the land of Israel, and Olam Haba. So we also know that the Chachamim teach in Gemara Barachos, we see this Daf 5 Amud Aleph, that suffering washes away all the sins of man. They have a cleansing and purifying effect. It's this kind of settles the cosmic account for whatever guilt a person has acquired. And also King David says in Tehillim, I think it's verse 23rd chapter, in verse 4, He says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. You know the Hebrew for staff, mishan, is from the root sha'an, meaning to lean on. Therefore, it clearly signifies an object of support in standing or walking. But rod, shevet, denotes a means of punishment, as in Shlomo HaMelech's words, and I quote, he who spares his rod spoils his child. In life, sometimes we have a fair share of suffering and pain. This could be as a divine punishment. And we have to learn to accept it and learn from it and know that this is done only to improve ourselves. The Chofetz Chaim heard someone complain that things were bad because he was beset by troubles in his life, and he used to correct him and say, don't say they are bad, rather say things are bitter, which is a very clever analysis, because whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever punishment he delivers to you can never be bad or destructive or harmful or unjust. Like a medicine or a medical treatment, it may feel bitter, but its ultimate purpose is helpful. You're removing debts owed for sins, and God's punishment, is a way of straightening what is crooked. Matir asurim, or when we read that in Ashrei, we're twisted within ourselves, and we have to be straightened. King Solomon said, my son, do not despise the chastening of Hashem, or spurn his reproof. For whom the Lord loves, he reproves, as a father, the son in whom he delights. And also it's mentioned in the Midrash, Tanchuma and Kitzetzei, suffering draws a man towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we have much to learn and gain from suffering. Next attribute, number 25, by being a person who recognizes his place. So, until now, in this list, the text lists qualities that a Talmud Chacham must acquire if he is to succeed in his quest. And each quality in the Hebrew text has the letter bet as a prefix, meaning by or with. For example, by reverence, by humility, by cheerfulness, by purity. The rest of the 48 things by which a person acquires the Torah begin with a hey. Therefore, like hamakir et makomo, one who recognizes his place. So for the last 24 things that our text indicates, how further qualities are to be gained, our text indicates not how further qualities are to be gained, but a person in possession of them. This resulting impression is rather that only the first 24 are to be gained and developed through deliberate conscious effort and hard work. This is like the uphill section of this Torah mastery course. The rest of the journey will go downhill. So however painfully acquired the first 24 traits are, the Talmud Chacham can expect to develop the other 24 somewhat naturally in like the downhill fashion. And as he continues to grow, he will ultimately recognize his place and be happy with his lot, which is this and the next attributes. So the maturing Torah scholar on this course will then recognize his place. Intuitively, he will realize his proper role in relation to those around him, what his privileges are, and what his responsibilities are. Among great scholars, or greater scholars than he will keep quiet. And where he is the best educated, he will realize his responsibilities and take the lead in teaching his fellow students. Number 26, the Talmud Chacham has to be happy with his lot. Rabbi Isaac of Toledo points out that when a Torah scholar dearly needs this quality if his studies are to amount to anything. Without it, he will be forever distracted and agitated with envy and this sense of injustice, or he will find it hard to concentrate because perhaps he has a desire for wealth. And gone will be the serenity of his mind and memory that he needs for the work at hand, which is Torah mastery. He has to be able to understand what he's learning. And when you are happy with your lot and you don't have distractions, perhaps this is your, overcoming your ego to a certain extent. This is important, that you have to take thoughts of desire out of your psyche to be able to commit yourself properly to a Torah life. Number 27. He makes a fence, devarav, around his words. He makes a fence around his words. So this Talmud Chacham will spend his years learning words that express thoughts, and thoughts which can be conveyed in words. He realizes that words are only vessels to contain and transmit things that are holy and precious in the Torah. If his thoughts are to be clear, the words which express them must be precise. In giving voice or delivering these kind of shiurim, there isn't any room for vagueness or fuzziness or blurring. You have a obligation to choose your words wisely. If you're going to if you choose to teach, make sure you teach correctly, and what you're teaching is easy to understand and not too fuzzy. Number 28, you must not claim merit for yourself. So this is keeping with Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai's dictum in the second Perek, Mishna 9, and I quote, "If you have learned much Torah, do not claim merit for yourself, since this was what you are created for." So obviously you can claim some merit to do the unusual or unexpected, or do what is beyond the call of duty, but you have to realize that you don't really deserve honor if this is what you were made to do. If you're serious about being a Talmud Chacham, you have to realize that this is not. It's not. You're doing what you're here to do, and that's the most important thing. Don't start getting overly egotistical about your newly gained wisdom and knowledge. Rabbi Shem Tov Ibn Shem Tov characterizes the authentic scholar, and I quote, "He is a servant who has not completed his set or proper share, let alone more than his expected task." So we have to remain humble, which is an extremely important attribute about our newly earned knowledge and wisdom. It's very important not to get ahead of yourself and think that you know it all before you know it all, and keep your head down and continue this evolution that we are dealing with in this Mishnah. Number 29 is beloved. This is important because this is how you tell a genuine scholar, because his behavior, his manners, his regard for others, and his concern for others is noticed by all who meet him and know him. If really the effects of this studying of Torah permeates his being, he will become beloved amongst all who encounter him, and he reflects this kind of light of Torah to other people, and they notice it. The Torah scholar earns affection and esteem from others by his thoughts, by his study and his worship, and it becomes like a glowing. It becomes something that glows from him, and he becomes beloved by Hashem. This is very important. Number 30, he loves the omnipresent God. So, how is a Talmud Chacham supposed to develop this affection for Hashem if you don't see Hashem? This is a matter of faith and a matter of convincing that you have to, through your studying, more you learn about Torah and the world about you, the greater your awareness grows of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His concern for you and love for you as you are, please God, being beloved by God, as we learnt in the previous attributes. He learns to see Hashem everywhere through the wonders of nature, a tree with its biochemical processes, and the cycles of the natural world. Just by walking and in his spare time, he can be nourished by this visual recognition of God around him. As it says in Birchat Hamazon, about Hashem, who daily feeds the whole world in His goodness with grace, loving kindness, and tender mercy. So, how do we express this love for an unseen Creator? By a program of emulation, by following Him in His ways. And I quote from Shabbos 113b, Sota 14a, and it says, "As He is gracious and merciful, so you should be gracious and merciful. As He supplies those without clothing, so do you. As He would visit the sick, so do you. As He would comfort those in mourning, so do you. As He would bury the dead, so do you." So your memorandum of operation in life is to imitate God's, and we are told in every aspect of our life how we should do this. Number 31. To love mankind. This is a very broad statement, and to love Hashem, but not your fellow human beings, that Hashem has placed on this earth, would be a big contradiction. Every person, the Torah teaches us, is created in a divine image. So does every human have an intrinsic worth which transcends individual differences of race and color. If the Torah fails to teach its students this, nothing else in his education will be of great value. The proper journey to true mastery of the Torah must make him one of, and I quote from Pirkei Avot, chapter 1, Mishna 12, of the disciples of Aaron, loving people and drawing them close to the Torah. The 10th, number 32. He who loved Stakot and loves Mesharim. So he loves righteousness and rightness. So as this Talmud, the ideal Talmud Chacham, devotes himself to this evolution, he will develop a high sensitivity to injustice and things that are wrong and cruelty. This developed student will find that he can't tolerate exploitation or double dealing or just wrong ethics. When Avraham learned that his nephew Lot and his neighbors had been taken captive as innocent victims of war, he went at once to battle their captors and set them free. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, he rose up and slew and slay the Egyptian. In Midian, he found cruel shepherds driving 7 maidens away from a well, when the maidens came for water and for their sheep. In outrage, Moshe Rabbeinu drove the shepherds off. Where human life or human dignity or human rights are subjected to injustice, these great patriarchs could not sit idly by in any sort of indifference. Also, if I can quote the Talmud, in Gemara Shabbos, Daf 13, Amud Beis, a fool does not feel stricken or wounded. It means that A fool has no higher feelings beyond his immediate horizon. Suffering and tragedy can be all around him in the world, but the fool never feels anybody else's pain. His ignorance is bliss, but the Torah scholar, or the Talmud Chacham, knows, feels and cares. He's sensitized to injustice and suffering around him. It is a case that he takes up himself, and he tries to rectify what he can, seeking tzedakot and mesharim. Number 33. He loves reproofs. So he loves to be corrected. This is a great attribute that is not really widely commented on. But a devoted scholar realizes time and again that the Torah is not some sort of romantic literature for entertainment. Within our Torah, it admonishes us or chastises us and makes heavy demands on us. But by accepting its unbending rules and rising to the demands that it places on us, he elevates himself and grows in character. And part of growing in character is to know when you're wrong or when you are to be corrected. It's like, I imagine, metaphorically, if someone is in a maze and you're going down the wrong route, your thinking, your understanding on a certain subject is what you think is correct, but you're wasting time because it's not correct. You should accept when someone tells you, don't go that way, go this way. You'll find an exit. You'll find an exit from your dead-end thinking. You should be glad, you should be happy that someone reproves you. When you're corrected, you're saving yourself from, your ego may be hit, but ultimately, if it's the truth that this person is correcting you, you have to be so grateful for them having to, people don't have to tell you you're wrong. If someone tells you you're wrong, they're helping you. Don't feel any egotistical pain. Rabbi Yehuda Anossi taught, and I quote, "Which is the straightforward path that a man should choose? Let him love reproof, for as long as there is rebuke in the world, contentment of spirit comes to the world. Goodness and blessings come to the world, and evil is withdrawn from it." This is from Gemara Tamid 28 Omid Aleph. One Chacham taught, rebuke leads to affection. Reprove a wise man and he will love you. So that's very, very true. Also, another Chacham said, reprove leads to peace, as in the case of Avraham and Avimelech. Any peace that has no rebuke in it is no peace. So where no faults are criticized or corrected, love is only blind or fearful flattery, and peace sits uneasily on a small, volatile volcano. Yerushalayim was laid waste, says one Talmudic view, only because its people did not reprove one another. That's taught in Gemara Shabbos 119b. So the scholar learns to make rebuke and chastisement a significant part of his life, a necessary extension of Torah study. We are bid in the Torah, hocheach tichorach, reprove shall you reprove your fellow. This doubled verb indicates, says our rabbis, that you should be ready to castigate someone even 4 or 5 times, even 100 if necessary, until he's ready to strike you or curse you. This is from Baba Metzia 31 on Modalef, Arachim 16b, Midrash Sifra and Kedoshim. The Talmud Chacham knows that he may not be popular as a result, but this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, which is ultimately for man's improvement. Again, I quote, whoever chastises his fellow for the sake of heaven merits to enter the domain of the holy, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And moreover, a thread of grace is drawn throughout his life. This is from Gemara Tamid 28 Omid Aleph. So, our rabbis give assurance that ultimately the scholar will not be shunned or disliked for this criticism. People will regard him with favor and affection, realizing that his criticism isn't a scalpel or a hammer of enmity, but a kindly instrument used with discretion for their benefits. And now 34, the last of these 12 attributes is keep far from honor. So the seventh qualification of these 48 was anava, which is humility. The students dedicated to mastering the Torah will surely not seek honor. It's just not the way of humility or modesty. Mitrachek, which is the true scholar moves away from kavod or keeps a distance from him. The Talmud records that at least 2 chachamim always went out of their way, taking back paths or entering shuls or bet midrashim through side doors, because if they passed directly before the large gatherings, all would rise in their honor and perhaps pause their studying. This is commented on in Kiddushin 33 Amud Aleph. So honor will generally swell your head and do bad things to you. Also, they will cloud your own faults and shortcomings if your ego is kind of takes your head above yourself. One needs to love chastisement and rebuke as a way of improving himself and his fellow human beings. And it follows that he must flee, like he's fleeing the plague, the honor that they would give him. This concludes, this was the last trait of the mature scholar. And the rest which follow in our final episode, episode 4, are qualities found only in the exceptional or outstanding heads of each generation, according to Abarbanel.
Fantastic. Wow, Michael, what an amazing expose of those 12 ways of the Torah. I'm very much looking forward, B'ezrat Hashem, to the final part of this 6th Mishna, of the 6th chapter. Until then, we wish you a wonderful and blessed week.